Shape tools in After Effects are incredibly powerful. Now they're particular, there's some rules that govern shapes that don't apply to other objects in After Effects, but they're incredibly powerful and they're really fun to use once you develop a familiarity with them. So let's jump right in. I'm going to create a new composition and we'll just call this Shape Demo. And I'm going to create a background that is, sort of kind of bright. HD settings, otherwise 15 seconds is fine. We just need a little bit of a playground, a little bit of a sandbox to mess around with. Shapes are located up in your toolbar, and you can create them in one of two ways. Like I always say in After Effects, multiple ways to get the same thing done. However, you have some we'll call them predetermined shapes, rectangles, rounded rectangles, ellipses that look probably pretty familiar to you. But you can also create custom shapes by just using the pen tool. So let's look at the first one. I'm going to create a rectangle. And before I create it, I'll notice that I have some options over on the kind of mini toolbar here. We've got a fill and a stroke. We have the stroke width. I want a fill for this shape. I want it to be, let's do, well, something that we can really see over this blue. So let's do, kind of like a yellow, that's kind of a dirty gold. There we go. And let's go ahead and take the stroke off. Now, if I click on the stroke color, I can't really see that. So that's the first thing to notice. Clicking on the text is different than clicking on the graphic. So if I click on the text, it gives me options for gradients, gives me options for different blend modes for my shapes. It also allows me to turn off that feature. So either turning off the fill, or in this case, turning off the stroke. We don't want that on there. So I'm just going to click and drag to make my first shape, and we'll notice a few things. Shape on my composition, shape down in my timeline, and for my personal preferences, a anchor point that is wildly off center. So just kind of keep that in mind. When you create shapes, you're creating them kind of in the expanse of your composition. When we create solids, new solid in 500 by 500, you notice that your solid is kind of created with the anchor point in the center, whereas my shape, the anchor point's kind of off center, because shapes are kind of created in the expanse of your total composition, and they don't inherently have size like a solid type of thing. So at any rate, just something to kind of keep in mind. So if you make a shape and then you immediately try to like rotate it, notice that it kind of rotates off center and has a little bit of quirk that we have to kind of mess around with. We can quickly grab the pan behind tool and we can, let's see, control double click on that icon and that'll locate our anchor point in the center. So if that's a nitpick, or rather a pet peeve of yours like it is for me, you can correct that really quickly when making shapes. Let's jump down into our timeline and talk about some of the unique properties of shapes. Well, first, we have the similar properties of transform. So we still have position, scale, rotation, and opacity, anchor point, etc. We've seen that on solids and type, and we'll have that on shapes also. But what's different is we'll notice a different icon indicating a shape layer. It's got a little star next to it. But we have this contents section under our layer properties. And under the contents, for now, I have a rectangle. I know I have a rectangle because I drew that out manually. And that rectangle has blending options baked in, so we could blend our shape options kind of automatically. We don't need separate layer-based blending. We could do it on the shape itself. But under that shape, there are 4 different properties that we can manage and manipulate. First, rectangle path. We can change the size of our rectangle path, manually enter it. If we want it to be exactly 500 by 500, we can do that here. Unlink, how about that? 500, 500, which makes it look awfully similar to that solid that we created just a moment ago. We can change its position here, and we can change the roundness. So we can easily make rounded rectangles out of rectangles using these settings under rectangle path. Now you notice the position is just changing the shape in the shape layer. So it's moving this rectangle within the shape layer. So we still have classic position over here. which is going to move the entire shape layer. But then we have a separate position that's going to just move this rectangle. So this is another unique thing about shapes. They can have multiple shapes within one shape layer. So that's important. So if we wanted to make let's just say a stack of boxes in one shape layer, we could do that with multiple rectangles. So keep that in mind. So size, position, roundness, all specified for this shape alone. We have a stroke. Now I don't have my stroke applied, but with our stroke, we could change the color, opacity, the stroke width. Notice the beautiful stopwatch next to each of these. So if we wanted to change the color of my stroke over time, we could do that. We also have some different line cap and line join options, similar to what you might find in Illustrator. We have a fill section, which again can be animated. So if we wanted to animate the fill color of my shape over time, we could easily do that and animate this shape going from light to dark just with a few quick keyframes. We'll turn that off. And we have opacity control as well. Then down below that, we have an additional set of transforms for this rectangle. So we have things like skew, which can create some fun designs. We have the skew axis, so we can change how that warps, make some fun movements there. We have additional position controls, so goodness, now we're up to 1, 2, 3 position controllers for this one shape. We can do rotations and adjust opacity, all within the shape itself. So we have the rectangle details, and then we have the shape layer details. So keep that in mind, that there's multiple different levels of parameters and properties when you create shape layers. That's it on the rectangle. Now I'm going to leave this rectangle here. I'm going to close all of these options. We can also create rounded rectangles, which you saw simply by making the rectangle. Rounded rectangles just have that rectangle roundness already set to 20. So rectangle and rounded rectangle almost have, they're nearly identical. They just have the roundness already preset. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that guy because we don't need it. And I actually created a shape layer too, so let's not do that. We also have the ellipse tool, and I'll take this moment to explain what I just did with that deletion. If your shape layer is selected, you're going to be making additional shapes in that same shape layer. So notice that right now these all exist on one technical layer. If your shape layer is not selected, not highlighted, you will be creating a new shape layer. So we have shape layer 1 and 2. It's up to you on how you want to do this. Why would you do it differently either way? Well, if you wanted to create a complex object, like say, I don't know, a person or something, here's arm number 1, arm number 2, foot number 1, foot number 2, and you wanted them all to exist in the same layer because you expected to manipulate them all at once or something, then you could perhaps make them all under the same shape layer. It's kind of up to you. With what we know now about pre-composing and creating more complicated compositions, you could create all of these on separate shape layers and then take them and pre-compose them into a composition, so that way they're all separate but all together. So there's lots of different ways we can configure this. For now, I am going to allow these to be on separate layers. So this one is rectangle, and then we will leave that unselected, and I'll show you my circle or ellipse. So the ellipse path would have similar controls, size and position. The stroke, the fill, everything is going to look very similar. When we get down to the transforms, also very similar. So not a whole lot of difference on the ellipse there. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. And notice once again that my anchor point was a little goofy on that one. One more here. Let's go to the Polygon tool. I'm going to draw that guy out. Now the Polygon or Polystar, when you get into the path, there are some new options. We have a drop down whether you want a star or a polygon, so whether those points are inverted or concave, convex. and it can control the number of points very quickly, so we can ramp those up or down. We also have tools such as the inner radius, outer radius, roundness, and outer roundness that are all going to do things like determine how deep those wells are, those valleys on your star, how long the stems are on those points, whether or not the inner valleys are round or not, and whether or not the outer points of the star are round or not. So while it doesn't appear to be a sunflower tool, the star or polystar can create some very lovely shapes and very nice shapes just through some experimentation over the inner roundness, outer roundness, radius, and so forth. So as you make this even more, you have instant sunflower. Make it fewer, and you have crosses. You have, I guess, daisies. I don't know my flowers. You have almost like radioactive symbols. Some really nice kind of results there. Flipping to the polygon, and we don't really get, kind of the same, I guess, kind of variety of shape, but you can still deal with the outer roundness option on this one. So it can be, very round or very sharp. And then as you push it further, you can kind of get into some, kind of more psychedelic effects. So that's that Polystar tool. It's a really a pretty entertaining one to play around with. I'm going to move it over here. We have one more. We have the Star tool. So the Star tool now is going to be basically the invert of the other kind of polygon tool. So now we see, much like rounded rectangle and rectangle, polygon and star tool kind of have similar results. So if you go down into the polystar path, we'll notice that this one is just set to star instead of polygon first. So not a whole lot of reason, in my opinion, to have both of those, but I think it just helps new users understand where they are. So that's it for basic shapes. Let's move to the pen tool real quick, and note that if I use the pen tool to create masks, it's really hard to see that. So let's change this to maybe pink. There we go. I can get a similar result, but I do have different control under the shape and contents area. So I have a path under the pen-based shape tools that I didn't have before. And what makes that path unique is when I draw out my shape, even if it looks very similar, when I draw it out with the pen tool, I can then animate that path. So that means I can grab these points and get to my arrow key and manipulate those over time. So that way that path can actually be deformed. So I can't get that same level of precise control with a traditional shape. So keep that in mind. Traditional shape, really helpful for quick assembly. Pen-based shape, great and essential if you really want to manipulate those points over time. So if you really want to make, like, movements like these happen, make sure you're making your shape with the pen tool first. So that's pretty much it for the shape tool basics. Lots of different options there, lots of fun things to experiment with.